some time, actually the week before last, because this is the start of the new week, someone left the front section of a local paper in my office. Has a front page article, headline begins above the fold, which newspaper people say that means something. It says, study belief in God declining. When I saw that, I said, well, welcome to my world. The study goes on to point out that the percentage of people in our nation that say they believe in God is declining, and it's measurable, and the percentage of people that claim to have no belief in God is rising, and that too is measurable, and that's particularly true of what are often referred to as the millennials. That those are the children of us baby boomers and the grandchildren of some of you that are older than us baby boomers. And that's really been a trend in our nation for 30 years. Belief in God has been declining. The percentage of people who say they don't believe in any God has been rising. Atheism even has its own evangelists. Go figure, huh? And they stridently seek to convince readers and listeners that belief in God is absurd, anti-intellectual, even dangerous. And we would all be the better off if we just got rid of it. Steven Weinberg is a theoretical physicist, a Nobel Prize recipient. And he's a professor at the University of Texas. So not everything in Texas is red meat chewing. He once asserted, the world needs to wake up from the long nightmare of religion. Anything we scientists can do to weaken the hold of religion should be done, and may in fact be our greatest contribution to civilization. He's not alone in the company of the apostles of atheism. But when some Christians insist on reading the creation account in the book of Genesis as if it were a scientific textbook, and computing the genealogies in the Bible to add up to support for their assertion that the universe is less than 10,000 years old, they give atheists pretty easy targets to shoot at. So, too, when terrorists shout, "God is great," as they detonate suicide vests or strap them to brainwashed women and children. So too, when people claim scriptural warrant for denying equality to women or people with a different color of skin, or condemning people with a different sexual orientation, it becomes easy, it becomes too easy to equate belief in God with ignorance and injustice. In an audiobook I recently listened to titled Utopia and Terror in the 20th Century, certainly reminded me that officially atheist regimes under folks like Vladimir Lenin, Joseph Stalin, Mao Zedong, and Pol Pot committed more than their share of barbarous atrocities. Human beings will find reasons to oppress others, resist progress, justify prejudices, and act upon them, God or no God. So, what do we as United Methodist Christians believe about God? It matters. You know, you may have heard, you may have said, I don't care what someone believes in as long as they're sincere. Well, it's possible to be sincerely wrong. So that's why we're going to be spending the next few weeks diving deeply into the long-standing statement of faith we call the Apostles' Creed. And it begins, I believe in God, the Father Almighty, maker of heaven and earth. So let's break that down a little bit, shall we? We do not believe about God, we believe in God. We believe in God whom we cannot see. This has driven human beings to create tangible objects they could see, often touch, and then worship. And the inability to see, to touch, to measure, and to weigh causes some difficulty for some persons, yet scientists wrestle with ideas like dark energy or dark matter, which are unseen, largely unexplained forces that even so leave for them clear signs of their existence. You know, drill down on what some of the astronomers are doing, and when they're looking deep into space, and they are theorizing things based upon the absence of other things. Remarkable. And this God in whom we believe is not some impersonal power, a force, or scientific mystery to be solved, but a being, intelligent, intentional, and powerful. We believe in God the Father. Now, when I was in seminary, there was considerable stress placed on using inclusive, non-gender specific language when referring to God. And while this did have elements of academic political correctness, it also sought to be sensitive to those who literally had suffered at the hands of their fathers. The Bible often applies the term Father to God. And Exodus 4 tells us that God planted the idea. When in that early part of God's relationship with His people, He called Israel my son. Calling God Father was and is a metaphor. The idea that we human fathers should try to reach. And Paul applied the metaphor not to power and dominance. He said that the Holy Spirit teaches us to address God with the Aramaic term Abba. Abba, scholars say, was how little children address their fathers. It was somewhat akin to calling them daddy or papa. Jesus is recorded as having addressed God as Abba. We believe in God the Father Almighty. Owen Gingerich, who's the emeritus professor of astronomy at Harvard University, wrote once, rather than believe that the universe is simply meaningless, a macabre joke, I would prefer to accept a universe created with intention and purpose by a loving God. The elements are just right. The environment is fit for life, and slowly life forms have populated the earth. Christians believe God's creative power produced life. Instead of the unprovable belief that the universe is some cosmic accident, we believe God made all that is. A Catholic priest and a cosmological physicist, as opposed to a cosmetologist, that's different. A cosmological physicist, George Lemaitre, is often regarded as the father of the Big Bang Theory, and I'm not talking about the TV sitcom, which I love. And Lemaitre asserted that the universe had a beginning, a birthday. And his theory of the ongoing expansion of the universe also means that it points backward to a day when there was no yesterday. Now, some scientists and atheists believe that the universe could exist without an external force. However, Oxford mathematician John Lennox states that the odds for the self-organization of life on Earth, that it just happened on its own, are in the neighborhood of 1 in 10 to the 40,000th power. Now, math is hard for me. Okay, so I had to really look that up. And so 1 in 10 to the 40,000th power is a 1 followed by 40,000 zeros. So, yeah, I thought, well, I'll just try to do that on the screen. Well, no, there's the short form version. Okay? All right, that's 1 in...
A lot.
You know, a lot, right? And you thought the odds of winning the Powerball were bad. Astronomer Fred Hoyle offered the analogy of the improbability of the self-organization of life on Earth organizing on its own is about the same as a gale force wind. That strikes kind of close to home right now for some folks, doesn't it? Blowing through a junkyard, and after it had passed, revealing a Boeing 747 that had just spontaneously built itself. Pastor Adam Hamilton offered a much simpler analogy of what it would take for cocoa, eggs, flour, sugar, and oil to spontaneously assemble them into a chocolate 3-layer cake. As I pointed out with our children, no matter how long we waited and watched, there was never going to be a cake until someone who knows what a cake should look like and taste like, mixing, baking, and icing it. And when I look around, when I see images from the Hubble telescope, if you haven't done so, you really ought to go online. You can Google that. You can Google everything nowadays. But when I see those images from deep, deep space, I see the handiwork of God. Remember our call to worship? Those simple verses from the book of Psalms? The heavens declare the glory of God. The skies proclaim the work of His hands. Day after day they pour forth speech. Night after night they reveal knowledge. They have no speech. They use no words. No sound is heard from them, yet their voice goes out into all the earth. Their words to the ends of the world. I can't prove the existence of God. Neither can you. But I believe in God because I am. Because of everything I see, I smell, I taste, I touch. Because while I have seen human beings do some very bad things, I've seen far more kind, gracious, and loving things people have done that they wouldn't do if it really was just a matter of the survival of the fittest. I believe in God because of the many times I felt His presence. How about you? Do you believe in God? Don't be such polite Midwestern United Methodists. Do you believe in God?
Yes!
All right. Now, then, as Wanda would say during the singing, stand up and let's say that creed again, but this time say it like you mean it. I believe in God, the Father Almighty, maker of heaven and earth, and in Jesus Christ, His only Son, our Lord, who was conceived by the Holy Spirit, born of the Virgin Mary, suffered under Pontius Pilate, was crucified, dead, and buried. The third day He rose from the dead. He ascended into heaven, and sitteth at the right hand of God the Father Almighty. From thence He shall come to judge the quick and the dead. I believe in the Holy Spirit, the Holy Catholic Church, the communion of saints, the forgiveness of sins,